Social learning theory is a theoretical approach that focuses on the role played by other people who are in a child's social context. So we're looking at what behaviors are children learning, right, from their parents, other authority figures, from their peers. Right? The comic on this slide is like a really good example of social learning theory. Right? The kids are all fighting, they're calling each other names, the parents are like, "Why are you doing this? We raised you better." And the kids are like, "Well, we always hear you yelling at each other." This is a great illustration of social learning theory. In sociology, we use the term socialization to describe the lifelong process of social learning. And we learn in social groups. Now, these social groups can be divided into different types based on group size and relative closeness. A primary group is a relatively small and intimate group in which you have a lot of face-to-face interactions. The family is a primary group. Your close friends are a primary group. A secondary group is larger, and the members of a secondary group have more formal interactions, and secondary groups are usually formed for specific purposes. So you can think about your workplace as a secondary group. When you were going to school as a kid, the other kids who were in your classroom, right? They weren't necessarily your BFFs or your really close friends, but you saw them every day, right, and went to school together. You can think about the people who you hang out with at the gym, right? That kind of thing. And then we have reference groups. Reference groups are groups with which a person has a strong sense of identification. You don't ever really see the other people who are part of the group, and you might not actually be a member of the group. So here's like an example. And I know it's really, really dated because I'm really old, right? When I was in junior high and high school, we had 17 magazine. And oh my God, that was a magazine to get. You get all the information on how you should style your hair, what kind of clothing you should buy, what kind of music you should be listening to, right? It was all in this magazine. And so we can look at youth culture in that way as being a reference group. Right? I was identifying with the girls in the picture and wanted to look like them, even though the odds of me looking like a teen model were very, very slim. Right? I really wanted to be part of the group, but I wasn't necessarily able to be. That's what a reference group is, right? And we have lots of different reference groups. Right? And we could even look at what we call subcultures as reference groups. So we have, for example, skater subculture. We have, a subculture around animes and gaming. Right? And each of these subcultures has particular sets of norms for behavior and for dressing. Right? And people who want to fit into those have to abide by those norms. Right? And people are engaging in social learning in the context of those subcultures. When it comes to learning to engage in delinquency, social learning theory asks us to consider the following questions. Who is the person hanging out with? Right? Who you're hanging out with is really important because you're going to model, right, their behaviors. What kinds of relationships are going to be the most influential and important to a person? So we're going to look at these two questions in the next lecture on Sutherland's differential association theory. This third question, what kinds of punishment or reinforcement does an individual receive, and how does that affect their engagement in delinquency? We're going to look at that in the third lecture, which will be on Acker's social learning theory.